My humble respect to Guru Mahan, Guru Piran Sivasankaran, Guru Piran Nyo, fellow Nyanis. I'm going to continue today with Swamiji's meditation method, his philosophy, and how when one practices meditation, the outlook of one's life uh, goes through tremendous changes and transformation. And I spoke about how meditation helps us in many ways. Um, Maybe in the early days you may not see major changes, but as you do your meditation over a longer period of time, you see that you start seeing changes in yourself. And I want to highlight that these Mahan's teachings and his philosophy, of course, all great saints and sages have shown the path to, understanding one's own mind, managing one's own mind, having a more focused mind, having a more peaceful and joyful and creative mindset. So the outcome of meditation is, most people ask, why do we meditate? Well, sometimes it's very fashionable because friends are doing meditation, so people want to do meditation. But it's more than that. Actually, meditation is kind of a lifestyle choice that people make and lifestyle changes that can have transformative impact. So over the many years of practicing these Mahan's teachings, for more than 40, 45 years, I've seen that over, the short period, it helps us in our, concentration and so on. But over a long period of time, you see that there are major transformation that essentially has, gives us really a spectacular and wonderful experience of this thing called life. So I want to walk you through some of the descriptions of this wonder of this meditation that I want to share with you. So as I said earlier, these Mahan's teachings are really profound. His teachings are very simple. His meditational technique is very simple. He shows the 3 stages of meditation. And the first stage is to help us to focus our mind. And in that focus, there is a structural change happens in our brain. We have now the capacity to, think more deeply. And you see that over time, you have that intellectual growth. When we practice second stage, the flow of the energy throughout the body improves our health and well-being. We feel overall very energetic and alert. And the third step, which Mahan shows, the cleansing step, where he essentially, the guru, downloads the positivity, the energy that helps the disciple to neutralize all the negativity and enhance their positive vibrations and gets a more blissful and universal connected state of experience. This is done in 21 days. But one then practices intensively, diligently, allocating time for introspection, contemplation, reflection, and meditation. You see that over time, one will experience certain experience many things. And the most important thing is that, as I spoke in the previous satsang, you get that connectedness, in all of us. What I call, we discover our spiritual compass, our direction, our true north, right? And the compass guides us in every facet of our lives. The compass helps us to understand God through various religious. We take interest in those scriptures. We try to understand those scriptures. We don't dogmatically follow it, but we try to make sense of it. The mind becomes more sharper. And we also start looking at the relationship between this concept of God, our universe, and also ourselves. So we start exploring that divinity. Earlier, we started with the exploration of God external to us, slowly it brings us back to our own self. This is where the self-realization literature, we start expanding and going deeper. But what is really interesting is that as we pursue this, our intellectual capacity and capability is enhanced. We start searching for not believing what other people say or, you know, have the second-hand knowledge. We want to experience this knowledge. So it becomes an experiential journey. Yes, people have written in the scriptures. Yes, people have spoken about it, but can we experience it? Right? So there's a search for a rational, experiential knowledge. So you see logic and others come in. And we take a very scientific approach, an unbiased approach, an evidence-based approach to understanding both ourselves, you know, the universe around us, and this creator itself that has created everything. So this journey starts. So meditation is not just sitting down and, feeling something. It's much more deeper than this. So it requires a different way of, introspecting, what we introspect, what we contemplate on, and what we reflect in our own lives. And ultimately, deepen our meditation and our service in this life. What is our role in this life? So it's a different perspective of doing things. So often we ask, okay, we are pursuing the spiritual connectedness or spiritual compass, or we call it the spiritual capital. How does it benefit an ordinary person? Are these only for monks and priests and people who want to, get away from the day-to-day life? The answer is no. This Mahan has shown that how one can practice this spiritual connectedness, nurture this spiritual capital while living in their normal life as a householder or as a student, as a businessman, as a scientist, as a teacher. How do we weave it into every facet of our lives? And everything that we weave, this spiritual knowledge will bloom and expand and become enlightened. And this is what the secret of this Mahan's teaching has shown, at least for me, that the discovery of the spiritual compass became the foundation that shaped every facet of, first the values, but the other thing is that every facet of one's life. I spoke about the spiritual compass, but how is it relevant to all our things in our lives? Yes, while we have a spirit, nature has blessed us with a body. And yes, some people are blessed with a healthy body from young onwards. Others may not be so healthy, but whatever said and then, even how healthy we are, as we age, the body will start declining. This is the nature of the body. What this spiritual connectedness gives us is that it helps the brain and the body unlock the force and the power of nature. So it keeps the body healthy, the brain healthy, and you see that it helps us age gracefully. Right? You see that somebody who's in the 60s and 70s and 80s are very, very active and having a fantastic, spectacular life. So the first thing that this meditational method that this Mahan and the teachings gives you a healthy brain and a healthy body, sharp brain and sharp body. It also helps us focus, gives us very strong, good emotional and mental stability. That is really important to give us awareness and greater clarity of thought. If our mind is not settled, if the mind is not quiet, if the mind is always in a state of turbulence and flux, it is hard for the mind to be focused and acquire or cognize the reverberation of the divinity, which is very, very subtle. When we have that mental and emotional state through this meditational practice, you see something very interesting happens, is that our memory improves, but more importantly, the memory stores knowledge that helps us to grow intellectually. So we are able to introspect, contemplate, reflect, and the most important thing is that the mind becomes quiet and the intellect becomes sharp to touch the core of our existence. Right? Something very interesting also happens is that when our intellect continuously expands and its horizon deepening and expanding, it starts unlocking the secrets of the creator, right? We become really creative. You start getting, eureka moments. You start discovering new things. You can put things together. Maybe the ideas were very different, but it starts coming together. So something very interesting happens. It may not happen in a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks, but over time, you start seeing that our brain's capacity increases, our memory capacity expands, our intellectual ability to analyze becomes greater. It is able to understand that subtle reverberation or the divine reverberation in all of us. And I showed that by doing that, we discover our own natural talent, which is the creative force in us, the Kriya force in us, or the Kundalini force in us, the divine force in us, that helps us to discover the natural talent, the nature is embedded in all of us. As I keep emphasizing, nature in its infinite possibilities and potentialities has not given everybody everything because the human brain and the human body has limited capacity. When the human brain is able to expand its capacity, nature will infuse that expanded knowledge. So, and that is where we start discovering, nature's embedded something amazing for all of us. You could be one of the best, poet, best musician, best Sufi that is able to articulate the soul's force, a Mahan, a scientist. Because our lifespan is limited, nature has given us something for us to experience this nature, which manifests in the excellence in our material life. To be a fantastic businessman, right? Or businesswoman. So through this meditational practice, one would be able to unlock their own natural talent. Over the many years, I discovered my own natural talent, which was buried in me, which I did not see because my focus was somewhere else. Now, I covered this in the last satsang. When we discover the natural talent, something very interesting happens. And this is what I want to focus on. One of the key things, yes, you may be a poet, you may be a scientist, you may be a financier, all that is great. But with that also comes that the natural talent builds in such a way that it gives you that wealth, but it also encompasses the ability for you to harness that wealth and share that wealth with others. So it builds that, what I call that emotional intelligence for you to become aware of your natural talent, right? Be able to harness it and share it with others. So you see that people who understand this, you see that they have something called a winsome personality, WINSOME, personality. They have amazing emotional intelligence. Many people talk about IQ. Yes, that is, makes them very intelligent, but they may not have emotional intelligence, right? But when you practice meditation, one of the key things that we see is that while you unlock your own natural talent, whatever it is, nature also shows you how to harness that natural talent by incorporating that social capital or the emotional intelligence. And I want to spend some time what that is, right? And this is something that happens if you really practice this meditation properly, you would see this happening. Oftentimes, when people discover these things, the ego gets in the way. You see that the words become harsh, the thoughts become harsh. No, that's not a wholesome attainment of enlightenment. True enlightenment is when you discover this, your thoughts become more refined and divine, your words become more refined and divine, and your actions become more refined and divine. And you acquire this winsome personality. You can relate to everybody. I have seen Yanavalal Paranjodi Mahan. I've lived with him. And I've seen him how he relates to, you know, young kids, right up to adults, educated, people who don't have formal education, how he has interacted with, princes, how he interacted with business people, how he interacted with people who are very simple. Amazing emotional intelligence. It's an amazing how he weaves through this multiplicity and brings everything together as one. And that's what I want to share with you that I learned from this great Mahan and great masters. The greatness comes in unlocking that greatness, but also permeating that greatness to everyone. So, what I see is that these people operate at different levels, multiple ecosystems, not just within themselves, with their family, but they operate in multi dimensions. In the office environment, they with themselves they are so wonderful, they're positive with their families, in their office place, with their friends, with their neighbors, with the general people. you know when they go for walks, when they see people, say hi, good morning, how are you doing, have permeating that positivity in them, building that what we call the social capital. We human beings are social beings, right? The day you stop interacting with people, that's the day your brain will start dying off, right? Our growth of our brain is not just by food, but also by the intellectual stimulation that we have, but also the social interactions that we have. When you isolate yourself, you see that your brain will start declining, right? So here, when we practice meditation, you see that you realize this truth. Nature gives you this treasure, but it also builds with it the ability for you to interact with everybody, share with everybody, because there's something wonderful that I'm going to show you that happens when we do this. Right? So this is what I learned from Mahan and Gurupiran Sivasankaran and my gurus, is that this social capital has phenomenal, benefits to all of us. Right? So when we become miserly with our knowledge and with our things, we see that nature will also not reveal many things to us. So one of the key things is that we start shaping our values and our norms. Our values and our norms starts changing, particularly when we intensify our meditation. You see that what's the values and the norms I'm talking about. We see that our values are that we have this values of ahimsa. Ahimsa is non-injuriousness. We don't harm people with our thoughts, right? We're always gentle and graceful, right? We're always not sharp with our words. Even when people make mistakes, it's okay. We don't dress them down in public, right? Because it's because of the refinement of the mind that our words are reflected. The same thing with our actions, right? So our values starts changing. I always have this term which I've developed called return on values, not return on investment. So our values and our norms starts shifting. We become more nature centric. We become more divine centric, right? Because nature actually, if you really focus very carefully, when it reveals the talent to you in a wholesome way, it also reveals these values and norms. We start changing, transforming. So Guru Sankaran used to say something very interesting. These values and norms. He used to say that we are always searching for a miracle. But this practice, he says, don't expect a miracle. Be the miracle. Realize the miracle is you. Don't expect an angel. Be the angel, right? So here we start seeing that our own personality starts changing. We become more people centric. We become more compassionate, right? So our values and norms starts changing. Our outlook on life changes. Many people have this very selfish, oh, me, right? Me and my family. But you see that values and norms becomes more and more universal. We transition from that selfishness to selfness. We're no more looking outside, we're looking within ourselves. The selfness makes us transform to become selfless. And ultimately, the selfless helps us to transition to the self-realization. So our values and our norms start shifting. Our outlook on life starts changing. We become more compassionate. We become more altruistic. We have this bonding. We can relate to things. We can relate not just to ourselves with our family, but the greater community. We relate to nature. And there's this bridging that happens, right? Between me and we, me and others. So there's this bond that you see, and you're able to bridge between the self to that self-realized to the selflessness. So that bonding and the bridging starts taking place in a natural way. Suddenly you feel, hey, I feel like, you know, going to the place of worship and doing something positive or giving a talk or helping somebody, right? That is this random act of kindness that starts permeating. Eventually, it is no more random. It becomes one, it becomes our values and our norms and our outlook on life. Right? We feel trusted. Even if people don't, even if people cheat you, it's okay, right? No problem. You feel safe because nothing harms you, right? You are interacting with a liberal heart, right? And I always tell, sometimes I have disciples say, Guru, that person cheated me, this and that. And I say, always remember, right? You can do everything positive and the world can still turn around you. Remember, it is not between you and them. It is between you and your divinity, between you and the creator. So you feel that liberalness. This is what, liberal, you are not caught up by this constraints of life, what people think. You are, driven by your spiritual compass. And that reciprocity, when you do that, things around you starts changing, right? Maybe people may not change immediately over time. Either two things will happen. Either they change or they move on, right? So always have the positive things. When we permeate positivity, it comes back to us in different ways. As the Newton's law says, every action has an equal and opposite reaction. When we permeate negativity, it is going to come back, right? So when we have that positivity, you see that people actually also will respond in that positive way. When we have gentleness, kindness in our words, people will respond. When people make mistakes, when we don't, hammer them, we help them through these things. Next time when we make mistakes, they come back and help us, right? So this is the two-way. You feel a sense of belonging, right? And a purpose in life. I don't know, when we have that social capital, we have this broader sense of belonging. It is not me and my family, it's a community, it's a society. And you feel so passionate about it that you say, look, I want to make things better, not just for me, but my community. Recently I had a chance to go to Istanbul, and this is during the most difficult period. We had war going on, we had global warming, and I felt so compelled that we have to do something. And I was fortunate enough to take Swamiji's message to Istanbul at the Global Sustainable Development Congress to talk about we really need to think about return on values, not return on investment, which is profit, driven. Yes, if we think about values, if we are able to create value, the prosperity will happen on its own. Right? So it's the sense of belonging, a broader belonging that we get. That's connectedness gives us this. In that process, we see that we have group support. There are many people that will come and support, that gives us guidance, helps us learn. When I went to Istanbul, I learned so many things. In my travels, I learned amazing things about amazing Mahans. When I was in Istanbul, I learned about how the Sufis lived, the dances that they performed, the music that they had. I read about it, but I truly came to experience some of the things that they were doing. So this nature then takes us, this mindset takes us globally to experience and learn new things, as long as we are open in wanting to learn. We acquire the citizen power, the group learning, we understand how collective intelligence, collective innovation, we know how to harness it, right? What we may not know, we can get this from that collective intelligence. I know today people have chat GPT and all those things. In that process, we don't harness our own intellectual power. So through this meditational, we have that collective wisdom of these great saints and great scientists and great people that are willing to share. I always tell people that when we are open and when we have that social capital, nature and things around us will respond in that same way. We build strong networks. We build, what I call network externalities. That means there's networks that guides us, teaches us, gives us new inspiration and knowledge, and helps us to grow spiritually. Right? That's what the social capital, this great Mahan's teaching, the structural changes that helps us to respond in a much more broader and universal way. We get diverse ideas and thoughts. You get a chance to learn from multiple sources, multiple Mahans, multiple gurus, multiple teachings, people of all walks of life. Right? It's very interesting, over the weekend, I had a chance to spend Father's Day and Mother's Day at an aging center. I sat down with most of them to ask them about their life stories. And I learned so many things about their own life circumstances and the challenges. And it was a tremendous learning for me on how to live our lives in the best possible way. I would not have got that knowledge if hadn't I had a chance to go down to the ground and talk to them. And they felt fantastic. They were so appreciative of this. That's what I mean by social capital. Proactivity, we then say, okay, I've done this now. I want to learn something new. I want to experience new things, right? You see, something very interesting happens. As we age, we become complacent. We just vegetate in our chairs, in our beds, and in our homes, and you see that the brain starts shutting down. So you see that there is that exuberance to connect, to learn, and we see that we become very active. We take an active stand. So even though you may be retired, even though you may be aging, you're continuously active. The brain is active, the body is active, and you see that, that decline is slowed down. Our aging process, we age gracefully. I've seen many people who are in the 60s and the 70s, they completely give up. They isolate themselves. They're not active, right? But here it is. Social capital helps you to talk to people, do things, attend satsangs, do many things that helps you to be active and helps you to learn, build new networks, new experiences. Right? It helps you to participate in life, not retreat from life. This Mahan's teaching, I really love his teachings. He says that you don't give up your desires, you divinize your desires. Two different things. Many people give up and they stop participating in life. No, you should experience, your desires in a divine way. Understand your desires that makes us shrunken and harms the body. Yeah, we should reduce it, but divinize your desires so that we at every moment in our life we have spiritual enlightenment and enrichment. And you learn from different people. You learn from children, you learn from the youth, you learn from different sages and saints and scientists and, a common man on the street. Right? So it's very fascinating. When I travel, I love to go and speak to the taxi drivers, the people on the streets, to understand their life stories, they understand their lifestyle, right? So it is that participating actively in life, and that's what part of the social capital is. That's what Mahan did. If I gave a talk on Mahan, he traveled around the world. He spoke to different people. He engaged with different people, right? He was continuously participating in life, enriching his life and enriching other people's life. And there's always that engagement. He's engaging people. He doesn't sit quietly. And there's a teamwork. He always builds teams to strategize, to work together, whether it's, in your own home or with family or with friends or with the Rukun Tetangga or the community organization or the Sabai or in the office place, always, strategizing, working, engaging in teams. That's what building social capital means. Yes, we have to harness our individual self, but we also, as I said, as we build that, nature also gives us the ability to expand beyond our individual self, to become more universal in our outlook. And that's the beauty of this Mahan's teachings. So what does it do? All this leads to strong, sustainable, and productive relationships. Not toxic relationships, productive relationships that enriches our lives, helps us to sharpen our mindset, our memory, helps us to refine our thoughts, our words, and our actions. Right? And we realize something very interesting, right? And I like this quote by a Native American. He says that all things are connected like the blood that unites us. All of us have blood that runs through our veins. We share blood for, but we do not weave the web of life. We are merely a strand in it. You see the network there? We are one of the dot points that connects everything. We are all interconnected, right? Whatever we do, think of ourselves as a network, and there are multiple networks. What we do in the web, how do we interact with people, also impacts us. It reverberates to us. Guru Sankaran used to say, the epicenter of all goodness starts and ends with us. Similarly, the epicenter of all negativity and destruction starts and ends with us too. So this social capital, this Mahan's teaching taught me is that as we develop ourselves, nature builds with us this knowledge of expansion, how we interact with people around us, how we interact with nature, how we interact with the universe around us, right? And as we harness this, you see that there's a structural change that happens in us, our personality changes. We become more and more universal in our values, in our norms, our outlook in our life, and how we build the bridges and the networks and the linkages that enriches our lives and that of others. And this is what this great Mahan's teachings have taught me. It's not just sitting down and meditating and getting a nice shock scenery feeling. It actually, we feel great, we feel happy, we feel joyful, we feel spectacular, and we are permeating that across all our interactions and our experiences. And you see that it enriches our own lives and that of others. And this is what I wanted to share with you today. Sandosha.